Hi, welcome to Fostering Resilience. In today's video, I'm sharing with you all about the 11th step from the program Alcoholics Anonymous. This is a part of my series that is all about 12-step recovery. So if you haven't watched the playlist, if you're brand new to my channel, I'm putting a link that's going to slide across the top of the screen above my head. If you click on that link, that will take you over to the playlist and you can watch this series from the very beginning. In today's video, I'm going to be sharing with you what is the 11th step, 4 tips regarding the 11th step, the 11th step prayer, and then I'm also going to be sharing with you a special gift at the end of this video, so be sure to stick around for that. My name is KJ Foster, and I'm someone who has recovered from an addiction to alcohol, and I'm also someone who has a PhD in counseling. I'm a licensed mental health counselor, certified addiction professional. I specialize in particular in relapse prevention and have worked with thousands of individuals helping them to recover from addiction. So my channel is dedicated to providing you with everything you ever wanted to know about addiction recovery, a free resource where you can learn all about addiction recovery. So stick around, we're getting started right now. So we start with, what is the 11th step? The 11th step is this: sought through prayer and meditation to improve our conscious contact with God, praying only for the knowledge of His will for us and the power to carry that out. And so I'm going to share with you the first tip that I have regarding the 11th step, and that is this. The 11th step is something that you don't need to wait until you get to the 11th step to start practicing the 11th step. So the 11th step is something that you can start doing right away. And you know, if you're somebody who's already in 12-step recovery and you know something about 12-step recovery, then you already know this information, is that you'll be encouraged to begin to pray and meditate right from the get-go. You know, the moment that you enter into and you commit to a recovery program, especially a 12-step recovery program, you are going to be encouraged to begin to pray and meditate on a daily basis. And I realize that, you know, a big hang up or a challenge that some people have when it comes to this particular step and a lot of the other steps in the 12-step program is the emphasis on God. But of course, as I've discussed in previous videos, it is a God of our own understanding. The 12-step program does not dictate what you have to believe when it comes to God. Really, it's just an emphasis on believing in something, whatever that may be. And prayer and meditation is something that can be thought of outside of even outside of a belief in God. And I'll give you an example. So I met a young man in early recovery, in the early part of my journey. I'm approaching 11 years of recovery in a week, actually. Next week I'll be celebrating 11 years. But in the very beginning, I met this young man and he shared with me a very interesting story. He was an atheist when he entered into the 12-step recovery program, and it was a huge challenge for him because he didn't believe in God. And so his sponsor recommended to him, with the prayer and meditation, it was very challenging for him. His sponsor recommended that in order for him to be authentic, to his belief system, that when he prays, he says something along the lines of the following: "Dear God, please help me to stay sober today, even though I know you don't exist." And then at night, he would say, "Thank you, God, for keeping me sober, even though I know you don't exist." And he was able to be true to his belief. And the interesting thing that happened through that is that he began to experience changes. He began to experience the benefits and the changes that occur through prayer and meditation. And so it wasn't so much important whether he came to believe in God or not believe in God. It's more about the fact that he came to believe in the power of prayer and meditation because he saw it working in his life. And I believe that the people that are critical about prayer and meditation, it's mostly because they've not tried it, or they've not tried it on a consistent basis long enough for them to be able to experience the benefits. So the number one tip that I have is that you start it immediately and that you do not have to wait until you get to the 11th step in the step process in order to start your prayer and meditation practice. Moving on to my second tip regarding the 11th step prayer, and that is to be consistent, and that you will gain much more from your prayer and meditation practice the more consistent that you are. And one of my favorite stories, so to speak, regarding the benefit of building this relationship with your higher power, with God, is in recognizing how relationships develop. And you know, I think about when I used to work in the hospitality industry. When I used to work in the hospitality industry before my recovery, before I changed careers, I would get phone calls, you know, quite frequently from people that I hadn't heard from in a really long time. You know, friends that I had years ago, but we had lost contact, and they would call me up, and I would get so excited because I would think to myself, oh my gosh, you know, they're calling me and they want to know how I'm doing, and isn't that great that they're reaching out to me? And then sure enough, by the end of the conversation, I would realize that the only reason that they were reaching out to me is because they were asking me for a favor. They were asking me to get them a discount at the resort where I was working. So it really wasn't about wanting to know how I was doing, wanting to spend any time with me. It was really like this ulterior motive. And so I think about that when I think about my relationship with my higher power, with God, is that my relationship with God is going to benefit the more that I'm able to connect with and spend time with my God. And that if I'm only reaching out to God when I want something or I need something, you know, how that must be, you know, to just be reaching out to somebody when you want something or you need something. So be consistent, because if you are consistent, I promise you that you are going to see and feel and experience the benefits of that consistency. Moving on to tip number 3, and tip number 3 is for those of you who struggle with meditation, and that is prayer is a form in and of itself of meditation. And I share this because I am someone who struggled with meditation in the beginning. I don't think that I started to meditate beyond my prayer life until I think like my 3rd or 4th year in recovery, because I'm somebody who has a hard time sitting still. So, you know, the idea of meditation to me was something that seemed very onerous. Like it seemed like there was a lot that had to go into it, and I believed that I had to do it for like a really long time, you know, that it just took a lot of time to be able to meditate, and that's just not true. I have come to find out, to realize that meditation, you can practice meditation as quickly and as briefly as 2 minutes a day, and as long as you're doing it consistently, that you will benefit from that meditation. And the key for me with meditation is finding out what works for you, because what works for you may not work for me. And so there's all different ways in which you can practice meditation. There's quiet meditation, there's music meditation, there's guided meditations. There's just so many different ways in which you can go about practicing. And the key is finding out what works for you. And I'm going to talk a little bit more about prayer as a form of meditation when I share with you the 11th step prayer. Moving on to tip number 4, which is the final tip before I share with you the 11th step prayer, which is actually, I'm going to be sharing with you a tip in and of itself regarding the 11th step prayer. So actually I'm sharing with you 5 tips, not just 4 tips, but this is tip number 4. Tip number 4 is to watch for complacency, because that is when the big red neon sign of danger, danger, danger should be going off in your head, because this is what can typically happen is, maybe you pray in the morning, you pray in the evening, which is common. And before bed, maybe you're really tired, it was a long, hard day, and you think to yourself, nah, I don't need to pray tonight. Or, you get up in the morning and you're really rushed to get to work and to start your day, and you think, you know what, I'm just going to skip it for today. I have found, working with people in treatment, that people while they're in treatment will do great with their prayer and meditation. They really, start to get into that consistent practice of doing it every day, twice a day, if not more often than that. And what I hear happens is people will leave treatment and they'll just stop doing it. They'll just stop. And I've also found that there are 2 big warning signs to me, especially with people who have achieved some recovery, had some established sober disciplines. And I have found that 2 of the biggest danger signs when it comes to actions, okay, is that people will start to pull back on their gratitude practice, or they'll start to pull back in their prayer life. And when that happens, it's my belief that you are then, shifting paths, and you're actually, traveling more towards a drink or a drug than you are away from a drink or a drug, because there's so much power in prayer, regardless of what you believe, God or no God. There is so much power in prayer. There are research studies galore out there that prove the power of prayer. So you are really making it harder on yourself. You're doing yourself a disservice if you don't spend the time to consistently practice your prayer and meditation. And I've pretty much been talking about that first part of the 11th step, because the 11th step, again, is thought through prayer and meditation to improve our conscious contact with God, as a God as we understand him. That's really only the first part. The second part is praying for the knowledge of his will for us and the power to carry that out. And I'm going to talk about that a little bit when I share with you the 11th step prayer coming up. Now I'm going to share with you the 11th step prayer, which is also known as the St. Francis prayer. But before I do that, I want to share with you a little bit of history relative to St. Francis that you may or may not be aware of. And St. Francis, although he was not an alcoholic or a drug addict, he went through a very painful emotional experience. And in going through that experience, where he went from a place of darkness to coming out the other side into the light, which I think is an accurate description of what anyone who goes through the experience of addiction and then recovery experiences, he wrote this prayer as a way of showing the change that had taken place within him as the result of that experience. And when you think about the 12-step process, okay, even in the big book, the Alcoholics Anonymous big book, it states that the whole purpose of the 12 steps is to create that spiritual experience. And my opinion, okay, because everybody has, different opinions, but my opinion and my belief is that spiritual experience is when you go from a place of self-centered, self-focused to other-focused. And this shift takes place within you. And that absolutely happened for me. And this 11th step prayer is really a beautiful expression of that. So I'm going to share that with you. Here we go. Lord, make me a channel of thy peace, that where there is hatred, I may bring love, that where there is wrong, I may bring the spirit of forgiveness, that where there is discord, I may bring harmony, that where there is error, I may bring truth, that where there is doubt, I may bring faith, that where there is despair, I may bring hope, that where there are shadows, I may bring light, that where there is sadness, I may bring joy. Lord, grant that I may seek rather to comfort than to be comforted, to understand than to be understood, to love than to be loved. For it is by self-forgetting that one finds, it is by forgiving that one is forgiven, it is by dying that one awakens to eternal life. Amen. Now, all I need to do is just read this prayer whenever I feel like I'm like off the beam, so to speak. You know, I'm just not really like feeling very spiritual. All I really need to do is read this prayer, and this prayer reminds me of really, you know, what I believe my life is all about today, which is going from that place of self-focused to other-focused. And so I mentioned to you that I was going to share more about how prayer can be meditation in and of itself. And this St. Francis prayer, this 11th step prayer, I think is a really good example, because you can say the prayer and you can meditate on the words, you can meditate on the meanings, or you can just recite it over and over again as a means of meditation. So you can use prayers, whether it's your own prayers, whether it's the 11th step prayer, there's a 3rd step prayer, there's all sorts of different prayers, but you can use prayer in and of itself as a means of meditation. And also, one other thing that I'd like to share with you in terms of, you know, a lot of people struggle with this idea of like, what is God's will for me, you know? And the second part of the 11th step is praying for the knowledge of God's will for me and the power to carry it out. And so what I've come to learn and to understand is that when I'm praying, you know, I don't pray for necessarily like to have like a perfect day and not have any challenges, because it's through challenges that I grow, you know, and it's unrealistic to think that any of us are going to go through life and not have challenges. But what I've learned is that now I pray to be able to face those challenges with grace, and to just be able to have the power and the strength to get through them, because I've learned that the most painful things that I've been through in my past have brought me to the most joyful places in the present. So think about that, and I hope you enjoyed the video today. I hope you found it beneficial. If you did find it beneficial, please give me a thumbs up, and if you haven't subscribed to my channel yet, please click on the red subscribe now button. And when the bell pops up, if you click on the bell, you will be alerted to all of my new upcoming videos, which I post every Monday. And I didn't forget, I promised you that I would have a gift for you. And what I have is a spiritual assessment. So if you look in the description, there'll be a link that you can click on, and that will give you a free download of a spiritual assessment, which is something that will help you to identify ways in which you can practice your spirituality, whether that's through religion, or it gives you other examples of how you can practice your spirituality in addition to or outside of religion, if that's something that you're interested in. And I also want to thank my comment challenge winner from my last video, my shout out winner for this week, and that's Lauren W. Thank you so much for your support of my channel and for the comments that you leave on my videos. And for those of you who are not familiar with my comment challenge, leave me a comment and you could win a shout out in my next video, and you will be eligible to win a $50 gift card at the end of the month. So leave me a comment, help me to get to know you, and I'll see you back here next week. In the meantime, I wish you a very beautifully blessed day. Namaste.